The first thing the staff noticed was the silence. Petty Officer First Class Ryan Mercer lay on the trauma bed at Naval Medical Center in San Diego, California, his broad chest rising in slow, stubborn breaths, his shoulder soaked in blood from a shrapnel wound that should have had him screaming. But he didn't make a sound. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look at the surgeons preparing to treat him. Instead, he stared at the ceiling like a man already gone, like someone who had decided pain was easier than help. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of words to save a life, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter, and they remind us who we are at our core. Ryan had been airlifted from a classified operation overseas. A Navy SEAL with 8 years of service, 2 Bronze Stars, and a reputation for never leaving a teammate behind, he was the kind of man other warriors followed without question. But that night, something had broken deeper than bone or flesh. The medic said he had lost too much blood. The surgeon said he needed immediate intervention to prevent permanent damage to his shoulder and possible infection. Ryan said nothing. He simply refused treatment. He didn't sign the consent form. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just turned his head away and closed his eyes. To the staff, it looked like shock. To Commander Harold Whitaker, it looked like something else, grief. Whitaker had seen that stare before in men who had survived when others didn't. The kind of stare that asked a silent question, why me? Across the room stood a young nurse barely 3 months into her career. Her name was Claire Bennett. She was 24, fresh out of nursing school in Austin, Texas, assigned to the Naval Hospital as part of a military medical exchange program. Her brown hair was tied in a neat bun, her hands steady but her heart pounding as she watched the tension build around the uncooperative patient. Claire had read his file before he arrived. She had memorized the details the way rookies do when they want to prove they belong. But what she hadn't expected was the wall. The invisible fortress around him. The senior surgeon tried once more to explain the risks. Ryan didn't respond. Another medic adjusted the fore. Ryan pulled his arm away. His jaw tightened. His eyes remained cold and distant. It would have been easy for Claire to step back. To let the seasoned professionals handle the situation. But something tugged at her memory. Something she had learned years ago, far from the bright lights of a surgical bay. Claire's older brother, Matthew Bennett, had been a Navy corpsman attached to a SEAL team before he died in a training accident in Virginia Beach. Growing up, Claire had listened to Matthew and his teammates talk in strange phrases, half-sentences, coded humor that made no sense to outsiders. They had a way of checking in on each other without ever sounding vulnerable. A hidden language built from loyalty and shared danger. She remembered one phrase in particular. It wasn't official. It wasn't in any handbook. But Matthew had once explained that among his team, it meant, I've got your 6. I'm here. You're not alone. Claire took a slow breath and stepped closer to Ryan's bed despite the skeptical look from Commander Whitaker. She didn't introduce herself formally. She didn't recite hospital protocol. Instead, in a calm, steady voice, she said the phrase her brother had taught her years ago, a unit-specific code only that team used during high-risk operations. The room went still. Ryan's eyes snapped open. For the first time since arriving, he focused. Not on the ceiling. Not on the pain. On her. There was confusion first. Then disbelief. Then something far more fragile, recognition. Claire didn't break eye contact. She repeated the phrase, quietly this time, the way her brother used to say it when one of his teammates was struggling after a mission. She added the second half of it, the part that meant, you carried enough. Let someone carry you now. Ryan's breathing changed. His rigid shoulders eased by a fraction. His jaw unclenched. No one else in the room understood what had just happened. But Ryan did. He saw not just a nurse. He saw someone who knew the weight. Someone who understood the unspoken rule that strength wasn't about silence, it was about trust. Tears didn't fall. Men like Ryan didn't cry easily. But his eyes glistened, and that was enough. Slowly, painfully, he nodded. The consent form was signed. As the surgical team prepared him, Claire remained at his side. She didn't say much more. She didn't need to. The code had opened a door, but what stepped through it was something deeper: permission. Permission for a warrior to be human. The surgery lasted 3 hours. Shrapnel was removed. Damaged tissue was repaired. Infection was prevented. When Ryan woke in recovery, his arm was heavily bandaged, his body exhausted, but he was alive and stable. In the days that followed, the real battle began. Physical therapy was grueling. The injury threatened his operational future. For a SEAL, identity and ability were intertwined. Every exercise felt like a reminder of what he might lose. Claire often worked the recovery ward. She kept her professionalism, but there was a quiet understanding between them now. She would sometimes repeat small fragments of the code, subtle reminders that resilience wasn't about isolation. Ryan, in return, began to speak. Not about classified missions. Not about strategy. But about the teammate who hadn't made it home. About the moment he chose to drag another wounded operator to safety instead of covering his own retreat. About the guilt that had wrapped around him tighter than any bandage. Healing, Claire realized, was never just about stitching skin. Weeks passed. Ryan regained partial strength in his shoulder. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. He might not return to full combat deployment immediately, but he would serve again, perhaps in training, perhaps in leadership. His career was not over. On the day he was cleared to leave the hospital, he stood taller, though a faint scar traced across his shoulder like a permanent reminder of both pain and survival. He found Claire near the nurse's station before he checked out. There were no dramatic speeches. No grand gestures. Just a steady look and a quiet thank you. But before he turned to leave, he said the code back to her, perfectly, deliberately. This time, he added something new. A promise to carry it forward. Months later, Claire received a handwritten letter from Coronado. Ryan had begun mentoring younger SEAL candidates recovering from injuries. He told them what no one had told him for years, that asking for help didn't erase courage. It defined it. At the bottom of the letter, he wrote that sometimes the strongest voice in the room isn't the loudest one. Sometimes it's the quiet reminder that you're not fighting alone. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a glimpse of what it means to stand beside someone in their darkest hour, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that restore faith in humanity. And before this story ends, I have one special request. Comment the words, "I've got your six," below if you believe no one should carry their pain alone. Ryan Mercer had faced gunfire, explosions, and the unforgiving weight of war. But the moment that changed him most wasn't on a battlefield. It was in a quiet hospital room in the United States, when a rookie nurse named Claire Bennett spoke a hidden code and reminded a wounded warrior that strength isn't about refusing help. It's about trusting someone enough to accept it.